Thanks for listening and subscribing to the Clive Barker Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to the imagination of Clive Barker. In this episode 221, Rob, Jose, and I go into Nightbreed and Candyman news, who beat Decker in round 3 of the Duels of Blood competition, and we talk about Barbie Wilde's story Patient K, out now on Amazon Kindle. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination shop is dedicated to benefiting the Arts in Medicine program at Texas Children's Cancer Center. Up to 50% of the proceeds will support the program where artist Don Bertram volunteers monthly. There's a new feature video that shows Don working with the kids at Texas Children's Cancer Center and his artwork. Click the side banner at www.clivebarkercast.com to find links to videos and his Etsy shop where you can buy his prints, books, and support this wonderful program. Welcome. This is episode 221 of the Clive Barker Podcast, where we're going to go over the news and Duels of Blood, and we'll talk about Patient K, which is a new short story by Barbie Wilde.
Yeah. So it's going to be cool. I'm Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
This is Rob.
Hey. Yeah, it's been a long time. we just got finished doing recording next week's episode, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina episodes 3 and 4 commentary. So last time we did this, my voice gave out during the news episode. So hopefully that won't happen again. I think it helps having Jose on. No offense.
Yeah. So we got some news to get into, and we can start with this one. Sam Sheeran, Mr. Sam on Facebook, has now a Patreon page, and if you want to support his art, and he's worked on a lot of projects that not just related to Clive Barker, but he worked on some related to Clive Barker, right? He was involved with the Madefire adaptation of the Book of Blood, right?
Yeah. And he did art for Hellraiser Boom comics and Hellraiser anthology comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he is actually localized in Hollywood, Los Angeles, and he also makes album covers and book cover artworks. And if you go to his Patreon page, it's patreon.com/Mr. Sam Sheeran. You will see a lovely banner right on top of the page with all these cool paintings that he's done over the years. When you might see Edgar Allan Poe there, you might see H.P. Lovecraft, you might see lots of satanic imagery like big black goats and black cats and all sorts of stuff. So he's an amazing artist. I mean, yeah. I know we've been following his art for a while, and I think, Rob, you're the one who actually got me more into Sam Sheeran's art. You kept telling me you gave me a link to his Facebook page when he was working on the adaptation of the Book of Blood for Madefire. Yeah. And I liked his page, and I've been checking it out ever since. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's got a really good style to it, It's digital, kind of a digital style art, but it's really good. I've always, I've talked to Sam personally, and he's really nice. He's a crazy guy too. He's funny.
Yeah. So he's got a lot of different tiers that you can support him on Patreon, and he's going to be announcing all his projects there. So it's a way for, if you want to follow one of your favorite artists, you can not only support him, but you get exclusive content, and you get the first look at some of the projects that he's working on. So that's always nice to be able to support. I support a couple of projects on Patreon, so it's nice to be able to give back a little bit. If everybody could give like $1 to some of these projects, everybody watches it, and they would be set. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And next up, we've gotten a lot of questions from people on Occupy Midian and stuff about what's going on with Nightbreed, because the Cabal Cut Twitter disappeared, and and stuff like that, and there hasn't been any more news. And really, we're fans, like everybody listening, and we follow this stuff as closely as we can. But the thing that what we know about this is that there are rights issues, and maybe some stuff was a little premature. There are rights issues. They were trying to negotiate a release for the for a European international release of Nightbreed, and when and if that ever happens, we don't know what versions of Nightbreed would eventually make it to that release.
Yeah. So if you're in Occupy Midian, you must have seen that there was a Facebook account, kind of an anonymous Facebook account that was posting called Cabal Cut, and they were posting photos and stuff. There was an Instagram account for NB Cabal Cut. There was that Twitter account you just mentioned, and it seems like all of a sudden all that content has disappeared. And again, we only know the same things that everybody else knows, and it seems like that, like you said, there's been some, I would say, walk back of the whole negotiation that's going on. So I don't know what's going to happen with this.
Yeah.
I'm still very much in favor of bringing the director's cut into the international market, and I just don't know when that's going to happen. I mean, it would be great for people in Europe to be able to buy a good version of Nightbreed by Clive Barker, because there's countries where it's never even been released in DVD, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And as for the Cabal Cut, there's still the Seraphim one that was released that has the commentary tracks with Jimmy Johnson, Russell Charrington, who was the original creator of the first Cabal Cut. And we're also on that release, on that Blu-ray.
Yeah.
That came out in 2017, was it?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we still have that one. So that's something to look forward. And that one is actually an international release, right? That was not region coded.
I think it's a North American release that's region free. So yeah. I guess, however, I don't know how, the if that wording makes a difference or not, but...
Right. So my advice is, if you're still interested in watching the Cabal Cut and you never got a chance to watch it, start off by looking for the Seraphim released Blu-ray that has some commentary tracks. Yeah. But we'll keep you updated as if we have any new information.
Yeah. Well, and Next Testament, the co-production with Mark Miller and Clive Barker, Seraphim comic release. Artist was Jaime Yang, right? And that is being put together in one big omnibus book, which is kind of nice for people who weren't able to get all the issues.
Yeah, it's always good to be able to read the whole thing from beginning to finish. It was 11, 12 issues, I think, originally.
Yeah, 12 issues.
Yeah, 12. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So is this going to be just one big trade paperback?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. 12 issues is a lot. So hopefully, once you take out all the ad pages and all that stuff, it'll fit in pretty nicely.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, it's a great story, and you can also find the novel that Mark Miller wrote, Next Testament, that we reviewed on the podcast at one point, right?
Yeah. One interesting thing, somebody on our Facebook page said, "Hey, whatever happened to that novel that was supposed to come out? I'm still waiting for that." And we're like, and I wrote back, I said, it did come out. We talked about it, and, we reviewed it.
Yeah, just Google it up, man. It'll show up.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's still available.
Yeah. And Tony Todd. So this is interesting, Candyman news. So apparently everyone kind of misinterpreted an interview where they said this actor was like the lead actor, and people thought that he was replacing Tony Todd as Candyman. And they've come out and said, no, he's not replacing Tony Todd's character in Candyman, which is still sort of enigmatic, and we don't know exactly what they mean. But Rob, you kind of framed this the blog story as like, is Tony Todd back in? And that is a really good question.
Because
right.
On his Twitter page, Tony Todd actually gave his blessing to the film, and it seemed like he had moved on to other projects, or somebody had brought up. I was talking to David Sharp, one of the contributors for the podcast, and he was maybe thinking maybe this is an intentional misdirection to throw the audience off or something like that, and that could be something that could be interesting, just to keep the audience on on their feet.
Yeah. Well, and I think there was a little bit of palpable disappointment. At least I felt disappointed when there's when it seemed like they were replacing the Candyman actor. And, and now we're hearing, no, that's not exactly the case. Now I'm back to just being intrigued, and I want to see what they're doing.
Well, the way I see it, and the way I interpreted what was said, because it's pretty vague. I mean, you can construe this in different ways. The way I saw it was that maybe it's not really like someone's replacing Candyman, because maybe Candyman's going to be different. So it's not going to be the same Tony Todd Candyman that we got. I always bring this up, but the Bernard Rose movies, they were not super faithful adaptations of Clive Barker's story, The Forbidden. Daniel Robitaille and, Candyman basically being a ghost of a slave that was murdered because he fell in love with the daughter of plantation owner, and he was a painter, and then they sawed off his hand and gave him a bloody hook stump, and they rubbed honey on him to call the bees, and the bees stung him to death, and that's why it's called Candyman. Yeah. That was never in the Forbidden story. Right. That was never in the Books of Blood. So that was a welcome addition, and I think it was a great expansion, and it's one of the they added it to the myth of the story in a way that I thought made a lot of sense, and it was really good. I like that idea.
But I just don't know. I think it was also in the original story, it was meant to be just one more story about Candyman, that may or may not be true. It's one more urban myth about his origin or whatever,
right?
Because then they spread his ashes over Cabrini Green. That's not what happened in the second movie.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but this is being done by Monkey Paw Productions, which is Jordan Peele's production company. And I think he had a hand in writing the script as well. So I guess we will see when more production comes out. Maybe this will be more clear as to what they mean by saying we're not replacing Tony Todd.
Yeah. I would say shooting starts on that pretty soon, because you have a June 20th release date of 2020, and we're in March, or about to be in April of 2019. So I'd say that has to be on the production horizon.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of faith in Jordan Peele's production company, because I just saw Us and I saw Get Out, and I'm looking forward to the new Twilight Zone adaptation that's coming out. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a pretty heavy movie when it comes to having lots of African American characters and actors and stuff, because that's usually what happens with Jordan Peele's movies. So I don't know if Candyman is going to be played by an African American, but if it is, it's going to be great. But
do you know if there's somewhere you can stream like Get Out?
I think you might be able to watch it on either Amazon Prime or something. I actually saw that. I think I rented it. Yeah, I rented it. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, going back to Candyman, maybe this is just going to be a completely different character, because ultimately in the story he was just an urban legend come to life, and it would be different for different people. So maybe that just means it's not going to be Daniel Robitaille again, because that was part of the old movies, and maybe this will just be a different character. And so in that sense, whatever character they come up with, or whatever actor is going to play Candyman, it may not be seen as a replacement of Tony Todd if it's going to be a completely different character.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, and it is interesting that the legend and the stories about Candyman are what keep him alive. And so maybe that they can, if they go back to the heart of that story, then his backstory and all the stuff that was established in the Candyman sequels maybe won't matter so much, like you said.
Yeah, and if they're still going back to the streets of Cabrini Green, which was a neighborhood in Chicago that ended up being destroyed years ago, so they're probably going to film somewhere and make it look like Cabrini Green, and it's definitely going to be, kind of like, a suburban ghetto situation that's going to be, so there's probably going to be some sort of urban legend running rampant. Then it says here that it's going to be an art dealer that has become obsessed with the Candyman legend, which is a nice little hook that doesn't tell us a lot about the story, but it does tell us there's going to be an art dealer. So maybe maybe this Candyman is still going to be connected to Daniel Robitaille and his paintings, because that would make sense for an art dealer to have that. So I don't know.
Hopefully not
I guess
like
we'll
in
see.
Candyman 3.
Yeah, that was terrible.
Remember those paintings? They looked like digital printouts of paintings.
Yeah, that was horrible. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, and then Doug Bradley is going to be in an '80s documentary about horror, about '80s horror.
Yes.
80s,
In Search of Darkness, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be it's an Indiegogo documentary, I think. It's been it's been, let me check their Indiegogo page real quick just to see how much they got out of it. I was trying to open it. So it's from a London studio. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's been funded. They just opened it up for a few more days so people could
Yeah.
get
It's definitely been funded. It was ended in November of last year.
Yeah.
And they got 397% of what they were asking for, which is always nice to get almost 4 times as much. They got up to 191,207 Great Britain pounds, which is a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a lot of actors in there. I like their splash poster, where they got like not just Ash from the Evil Dead movies, they got Freddy Krueger, they got Angus Scrimm from Phantasm, they have Jason, Chucky.
Oh wow!
So they even have the Fly Monster in there and the clowns from Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Well, and Angus Scrimm died, so I wonder if they're gonna get old footage of him or how that's gonna.
Yeah, probably. We're going to talk about Phantasm as a franchise.
Don Coscarelli instead.
Yeah, so that seems like it's going to be amazing. They even interviewed people like John Carpenter and other names like that. Heather Langenkamp, Joe Dante, Jeff Koons, Barbara Crampton, Greg Nicotero from Creepshow and Day of the Dead, Bill Moseley. There's a whole bunch of names here. Sean S. Cunningham, Kane Hodder, who played Jason, of course. It's going to be great. Tom Holland, and now Doug Bradley. So keep your eye on this one because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and so that brings us over to the Duels of Blood. So I have to apologize to everybody. I don't know what happened, but this round ended a little early. So it was supposed to end at midnight Friday night, but it ended. I think it ended at noon instead. But that's okay. I mean, it's still. I think the results probably wouldn't have changed.
Yeah, there's a lot of results here that seem very, very. There was no way the other side would ever win, even with an extra 12 hours of voting.
Yeah. So first off, we had Ghost versus Anastasia, and Ghost won. I mean, the Berserkers are cool, so. I was kind of hoping that we would get Ghost versus Slaughter, in one of these matches, but it hasn't happened yet in our randomizer.
Yeah. So a little bit of trivia I like to bring up every time we talk about Ghost is that Nicholas Vince played some parts of Ghost, especially with the hands.
Yeah.
So is the albino Berserker, I guess.
Yeah, kind of scary looking. And then we have Shuna Sassy versus Toledo. And we were talking about this earlier. I was kind of pulling for Toledo too, Jose. And
I voted for him.
I did too, and I like Shuna Sassy. I think she's great too. I'm not upset or anything about this result. Toledo is a very what do you call that?
Obscure.
Thank you. He's an obscure character. So I'm not super surprised. Shuna Sassy was really kind of front and center for a few minutes in the movie, so it makes sense.
Yeah. It seems like all the cartoon characters, I shouldn't say cartoon, comic book characters from Nightbreed didn't really make it big in the votes. Like the next one is a really obscure one. It was May.
Yeah.
Was he a werewolf creature?
May, yeah, she was the werewolf that was Peliquin's boyfriend or girlfriend. Right, so May was one of a long series of Peliquin's lovers that get killed, so that he can get revenge.
Right, right. Was she killed by a berserker or something? I
No,
forgot.
she was killed by another werewolf. Like it
Yeah.
was a rogue werewolf.
And she was up against Otis and Clay, who appear in the movie briefly in the background in a few shots, which is basically two men occupying a single body. And one of them was a writer and the other was a critic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So their story got expanded in the Boom Studios Nightbreed
Yeah.
comic.
That's right. So Otis and Clay moves on to the next round with 92% of the vote. So
Yeah.
people still like him just because he looks so weird, and it was in the movie, of course.
Yeah.
Next up is Oral versus Cabal, and
Not really surprised on this one.
no surprise there.
Yeah.
It's,
Oral
Cabal,
was
of
the
course,
guy
takes it.
who could stick knives in his gums. You know, he could put anything in his gums to make them into teeth, and his mouth would get impossibly huge.
He and Aiello were my favorite characters from that rogue group of Nightbreed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Aiello died early in that comic.
yeah, she sure did.
Yeah.
And then next was a very surprising result, right?
Yeah,
we had,
this is the only kind of upset I think that we have.
right. It's Kushner Day. Most people know him as the drummer in Nightbreed. He's a last member of a tribe of people who were so ugly that they couldn't stand the sight of each other without vomiting. So they would develop drumming skills to warn the others to stay away so they wouldn't have to look at each other.
Yeah. And he was drumming when Midian was getting attacked.
Yeah. And he went up against Decker and he won.
Yeah. Very, very surprising.
Yeah, resurrected Decker. Yeah.
I
He
thought
got 100.
even though it's just resurrected Decker, I thought any version of Decker would be popular.
Right, and in the next match we have the victory of the monstrous
Yeah.
because Vasti Moses won against Baphomet.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just because Vasti Moses is such a striking makeup design. It's just such an amazing full body suit.
Yeah,
It's really
is.
crazy. Yeah. He was one of the last members. This is going to be a line that we're going to repeat a lot with the Nightbreed. That's the last line of a member of a tribe. He was one of the corpulents, who was this race of really fat guys who lived in like the Himalayas or something. And then his mother, one of the corpulents, took a human wife. And I think that because of the human mother, he was born deformed. So they weren't meant to look like that. That's just because he was born deformed.
Oh.
And so, yeah, so Vasti Moses beat Baphomet, which is not hard to do because Baphomet is very striking, but he's still just a statue, right? So
Yeah.
not a lot there to work with.
And then we have Bloody Bones from the comics versus Onaka, which, no surprise there. We knew Onaka was going to win.
Yeah, Simon Banford fans has been promoting and beating the drum to vote for Onaka and the characters that Simon Banford plays. So very clearly, thank you, Laurie, for all your 366 votes. I'm just joking. Probably lots of people voted for Onaka just because he's such a charismatic character.
Yeah.
And is one of the best moments in Nightbreed is when Onaka gets exploded. Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers.
So the movie's been out for almost 30 years. It's okay. Statute of limitations on spoilers is gone.
It's up, yeah.
Yeah.
Devilude versus Mexico. So Devilude, he has lines and Mexico doesn't because he can't speak. So not surprising, I think, that he won.
Yeah. And also just the makeup design of Devilude is so cool. I always wanted to find a copy of that jacket that he has. It's such a neat jacket. Yeah, the satin jacket is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to that thing after they shot the movie.
Yeah.
What's the plan? Yeah.
You take the big one.
Sucker.
And Mexico has these hands on his neck, and supposedly, like you said, he doesn't speak, but he would use his hands to communicate what he wanted. So I guess he's very expressive in that regard.
Beloit Mato versus Babette. That one Not super surprising. Babette has an important part in the movie, and Beloit Motto is more like in the background.
I hope you pronounce that name properly, because otherwise it's going to kill you for it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the thing about Beloit Motto, is that
no.
he said that he would if you pronounce his name wrong, he would be very upset and probably kill you. That's from the Nightbreed Chronicles. And yeah, Babette is a very popular character. When they were writing stories for Midian Unmade, they were calling for submissions from fans. Yes. I remember Del Howison, Dark Del from Dark Delicacies, saying, "All right, people, stop sending us stories with Babette. We get it.
Yeah.
We already have plenty of those.
Yeah.
Pick someone else." Just because there were so many, right? Yeah. I mean, people wanted to make stories with Babette.
And then Mater Q versus Narcisse. I think no one was surprised that Narcisse won that one.
Oh, yeah. I love a coward.
Yeah. And the Fabilu family versus Dagon. So I like Dagon. I was voting for him, but I think I was the only one.
Because you like crabs, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he's pretty cool, but
you like crustaceans. Yeah. And most people, I don't get it, because at least Dagon had lots of issues in the comic books, but the Fabilu family, you only see them for like a second in the movie, but they are in the Nightbreed Chronicles book, and they're the family that aged backwards.
Yeah.
So the older they are, the younger they are. Yeah. And let me just go back, because you skipped one of the matches. You skipped Mulciber versus Lori.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I missed it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is Lori from the comics, right? The one that
she can play guitar and make the dead come back to life.
That's a neat power, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Until she resurrects an entire T-Rex skeleton, right?
Right. Yeah. Wasn't that just to cover their escape or something? She just destroyed a museum for that.
Yep. And then we have Slaughter, another berserker who made it to this round, versus one of the original saviors of the Nightbreed, Jean Dulac.
Yeah. And
like you said, they're cool. So Slaughter took the win.
Yeah.
You could say it was a big slaughter.
Yeah, right. And Leroy Gom versus Kinski. So this one was actually close the whole way. A lot of the time, Leroy Gom was in the lead. But at the end, Kinski took it.
Yeah, it was close though. It was close. Yeah. I wonder if Tony Bluto knows about the Duels of Blood, because he's on Facebook. He's the actor who played Leroy Gom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's on Facebook.
I guess we should. Too late to tell him about it now.
Yeah, and then another obscure character who won was Mezek Mul, which is the big creature that Diadara, the leopard woman, or cheetah woman, or whatever, rides in a stop-motion animation sequence in Nightbreed. Yeah. So it looks like people are into that thing, especially after the director's cut came out and they reintroduced that scene into the movie, right?
Yeah, and it was kind of a big deal when that footage was found. That was the only thing that we saw that Phil and Sarah shared on their website.
Yes, they did. They shared some of that stuff. Well, he apparently stomped over Aiello, and he took the win.
Yeah.
Aiello got 15 votes, and Mezek Mul got 194 votes. So that's insane.
And Yilly Kat, whenever I see that name, I always think of that Friends song, The Smelly Cat.
Oh, okay.
So that it gets stuck in my head whenever I'm working on. And then later on, I'm thinking, why do I have this Smelly Cat song stuck in my head? And then I think, oh yeah, I guess it's because working on the website.
Smelly Cat.
What are they feeding you?
So he lost against Rachel, which is not a surprise, but still he got 6 votes, but he's still not the one who got the least votes. The one who got the least votes was Mater Q. She got 2 votes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And those might have been accidental votes.
Yeah.
Poor Mater Q.
Yeah.
So interesting. Like a lot of these characters are from the movies. They're going to move forward. We're going to have a couple of berserkers in the next round.
Yeah,
so anything can happen.
And moving on to the next round, the random pairing has been done, and by the time you hear this episode, you'll be able to vote on them. So we've got Otis and Clay versus Devil Lude. which I think probably Lude is going to win that one.
Yeah, he's pretty recognizable, and I think people like him a lot.
Yeah, and by round 3, of course, we're getting more into more difficult choices. So we've got Vasti Moses versus Slaughter.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I could go for Vasti Moses on this one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like Berserk.
Mm-hmm. Cabal versus Rachel.
Yikes. That's going to be really, really difficult.
Yeah.
That one's a difficult one.
And Shuna Sassy versus Babette. That might be the hardest one out of them all.
I think so.
I'll vote for Shuna.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'll vote for
I can't
Shuna.
decide.
But I might go between the both of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Both day Babette and one day Shuna. Because that is tough.
And then I think that Kinski gets an easy win on this one. We've got the Fabilu family versus Kinski.
Yeah. That's going to win for sure.
Yeah.
And the next one is going to be, I think it's going to be a wash too, because it's going to be Narcisse versus the drummer, Kushner Day.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Narcisse is going to win this one, but
Kushner Day has gotten an incredible amount of votes, and I for the last 2 rounds. I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe we can try to give him a new image the next round and see if that helps, because maybe we can get a better resolution photo.
Yeah. Mezig Mool versus Ghost. So I don't know. Mezig Mool is kind of like a face of the, of the Occupy Midian movement and the Cabal cut and everything, because it was surrounded by all the excitement of the new footage being found and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But Ghost is a berserker, and everybody likes them too. So I don't know who's going to win that one.
Wouldn't be crazy if a berserker won the Duels of Blood Nightbreed edition.
Yeah, I don't think that Lori is going to let that happen.
Yeah.
Lori's days are numbered.
Yeah. And speaking of Lori, we're going to have comic book Lori versus Onaka.
Yeah.
And yikes, I think Lori is in for some hard times. Hard times.
Right. And if it was Lori from the movie, it would, played by Ann Bobby, then we would have a tougher battle. But I think that Onaka is definitely going to take this one.
Yeah. Yep. So stay tuned for the next. When is the next round going to start voting, Ryan?
Sunday morning, as soon as this airs. So yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So yeah, go ahead and vote for your favorites, and no flesh will be spared.
Yeah. Well, and that'll run for another couple of weeks until we have our next news episode. And then, did you guys read Patient K, the Barbie Wilde short story?
Yeah. What a trip.
It was. Wow. It felt very short in a way too.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
A lot of information, and for that, for a short amount of pages, you did a great job of bringing it all together. Yeah,
I liked it, and it was really intense. Lots of stuff going on.
Yeah, so this was from Barbie Wilde, and this story could have just easily made it into The Voices of the Damned. It originally appeared in the Dark Discoveries magazine. Oh. And it was put for sale by itself on Amazon as a Kindle story. So that's how I got it. Yeah,
I think is it like $1 or $2, something like that?
Yeah, it's like $1.
Yeah. So check it out. I mean, especially if you like Barbie Wilde's writing, if you've read Voices of the Damned or the that serial killer book,
Venus
Complex.
Yeah.
It kind of combines those elements with a bit of a Twilight Zone kind of weirdness.
This reminded me a little bit of her polyp story in a way.
Yeah.
Just
it's got some medical horror. Yeah, it's got some medical horror in it. So basically, it's a woman when she was playing with her brother as a small kid. Every parent's worst nightmare happens when they're playing with a BB gun. And you're going to blow your eye out, and that's exactly what happens. Like her little brother accidentally shoots her in the eye, and so it's gone. So she doesn't make it, and she fast forwards to 15 years later, and she has been using eye prosthetics. So she goes to see Mr. Dr. Deakins. Wait, no, Dr. Deakins had retired, so she found another one called Dr. Markham.
Yeah, there we go.
Dr. Markham, and it turns out Dr. Markham is not a good doctor, and he just takes advantage of her in a really creepy, really unsettling way, as you can imagine. You know,
and he does it before she's even unconscious.
Yeah, it's one of those stories where we get right into the nitty gritty of it, and it's very. This happens in a lot of stories in Voices of the Damned, where the character gets abused or molested or violated by another evil character. But in this one, it's basically a revenge fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sort of a I spit on your grave type of situation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So she gets abused while she's under, and but then she still gets the eye prosthetic. And the eye prosthetic brings her a new friend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how much we can. I want to tell that part, but I think that maybe just for fear of spoiling it, maybe we should kind of stop it there. But this friend helps her with her revenge plans.
Yes, it definitely helps her with her revenge plans, and it gets pretty gory and pretty, like you said, I spit in your grave. It's a good comparison to what happens next in this story. But yeah, it's a short story. It's very you get good bang for your buck, literally. So if you're into the whole revenge fantasy, splatterpunk, if you're familiar with Barbie Wile's work, go ahead and buy it because you're going to be very entertained.
Yeah, and it's a quick read. It's about 15 pages, I think, total.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It reminded me a little bit of some of the parts in that story, the Jacqueline S., her will and testament that appears in the Books of Blood.
Oh, yeah, right. I can see that.
Yeah, because there's also Jacqueline S. goes to see a doctor, and he's basically trying to get her to conform and to be more submissive to her husband's needs, and then she turns him into a suitcase.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, that's the other guy. She turns him into like a woman. She says, "Be a woman," yeah. So he could understand how she feels, and then breasts explode from his chest, and his pelvis breaks, and his pelvis bone shatters and stuff like that. So it's very gory, and this story goes places that make you curl your toes a little bit.
Yeah, makes you feel pretty squirmy. Yeah. And speaking of that, on the site, Rob, you did a review of Patient K.
Yeah, and Barbie was nice enough to share it around, and
oh, that's great.
She sure did. Yeah,
it was cool of her.
And watch out for that. And we also did commentary on the chilling adventures of Sabrina episodes 1 and 2. Rob, you and I did that one a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
that was fun.
And David shared his review of Book of Monsters that stars Nicholas Vince on our site. So I think he put that also on his Horror Underground blog and shared it with us too. So we have that as well.
It's a great review. I haven't had a chance to see the Book of Monsters yet, but after reading David's review, I'm very interested. I believe that there is a Blu-ray for sale for this movie.
Yeah.
And it was written by Paul Butler and directed by Stuart Spark. And it like David says, Book of Monsters fits right in with films like There's Nothing Out There, Bloodhook, Demon Wind, and even tried and true genre classics such as Evil Dead and Night of the Demons.
Yeah.
I believe it was a crowdfunded movie, wasn't it?
Yeah. So now, with that description, now I'm intrigued. I want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we can bring that into one of our news episodes. Because these Duels of Blood things are going to get shorter and shorter discussion, as stuff gets narrowed down. So maybe we can add that in.
Yeah, so the film opens with an 8-year-old girl being read a bedtime story from a dusty old book. So It's kind of a Necronomicon-looking book, and after the mother is savagely ripped apart from a spider-like boogeyman hiding under the bed, we jump 10 years forward as the lead, Sophie, is turning 18. And I guess, as any movie that has a woman coming to age, there's going to be something that's going to happen. There's going to be a party. There's going to be demons that show up. So it's going to be a monster smash. And
Yeah, that sounds cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, let's maybe see about maybe in this is round 3 we're talking about, so maybe in 2 more we could do, because I think, do we have to order the Blu-ray?
I think so. Maybe we can put something on the show notes there, but I believe the Book of Monsters is available. Let me just give a quick Google here, and I will let you know.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what sort of role Nicholas Vince plays, but I think his role is kind of short. It's more like a cameo. The Book of Monsters. Let's see. Book of Monsters Blu-ray. Yeah, and what else do we have on the site, right, Ryan?
Well, that was it. And next week we're going to have the commentary for the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina episodes 3 and 4 that we recorded today.
And I made it into that one, so I'm back.
Yeah. So that's cool. And then once we get through with that series of the first season, then we'll be going on to Abarat, Days of Magic, Nights of War. So we'll be talking about that. Hopefully we can have Peggy O'Leary come back again for that one.
Oh, that's going to be great. She was such a treat to have. I found out about the Book of Monsters Blu-ray, so it's being sold by Epic Pictures.
Okay.
That's the company that's selling it. It's on sale now for $19.99, down from $26.99. And it's got some cool special features. It's got director and writer commentary, got some cast commentary with some of the main actors in the cast. And then it's got a little book. Oh, wait, not a book. No, not a book. Okay. It's Opening the Book of Monsters, the making of the film. So it's a feature-length documentary about the making of the film, and features all sorts of behind-the-scenes footage from the set and interviews with the cast. So it's feature-length. So it's going to have alternate scenes. It's going to have a gag reel. The Kickstarter concept film that was used to crowdfund the movie. It's going to have another quick short in there called Rats and some interviews. So, it's going to have English and Spanish subtitles too, and it's region free.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to check that out and see if we can maybe by the time we get to round 5 of the Duels of Blood, we'll have watched it and we can talk about it.
Yeah, I just put a link to buy the Blu-ray on the show notes there if it's going to be put up in the blog.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, looking forward to that. All right, well, and this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. You can find the show notes for this episode and join the discussion over at www.clivebarkercast.com, where we have news, features, reviews, and links to all the ways you can connect with us. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and every other place you can find podcasts. Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and news blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.